In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern. There is a big cooldown on the way, and overall, we do see some more cold air in the long range. We're going to be discussing that today, alongside some major storms around the nation. It is quieter for a lot of folks, but there is some areas of vast activity that we're going to be discussing, and a highly elevated tropical threat that we see throughout the Gulf and some throughout the Atlantic, so it's going to be a big tropical update today as well. Let's go ahead and dive into things. And currently we're taking a look here at the United States, looking at some of these storms, and I want to take us straight towards this evening. I think this is an interesting point to start at, and we do see a low up here in eastern Canada, a cold front stretching along the east coast of the United States here, and really an ongoing now cold front and cool down overall for the eastern states behind all of this. We do see a couple of low pressure systems throughout the eastern here and some of the western Gulf. These are areas that are certainly going to be interesting to track moving forward. We definitely have a lot to watch for out there, as we are really close to the peak of the hurricane season. And I know that's hard to believe because things have been underwhelming. I've talked about this so much that it's not even really worth mentioning anymore, but it just boggles my mind how inactive this hurricane season has been, despite the record-breaking heat that is available in the water. So we have really seen a miracle here so far, and I'm hoping for sure that that continues throughout the rest here of that hurricane season. Let's take this towards tomorrow afternoon on Sunday, September 8th. And this area here, it's pretty broad, but there's an area of low pressure. We see it kind of extending south all the way through the Yucatan Peninsula. And we're going to be watching this very closely for development. And this one actually is a code red, high chance of development now, believe it or not. So definitely something that we're going to be watching for. Your jet stream is a classic ridge in the west, trough in the east pattern. So we see something like this. Low overhead up there for Canada, and a lot of cold air is flowing into some of the central and eastern states here. Let's take this towards Monday on September 9th, and we see this low is really trying to form in the southern Gulf of Mexico. So definitely seeing a lot of this energy transfer to the south, and we see this actually develop. Believe it or not, I know we've been talking about a lot of things that are hard to believe in this video, but this is actually our original tropical low that for weeks now we've been tracking across the Atlantic, that's stuck really close to Central America, and really we saw it lower in chances of development over time. This one could have been a really bad one. But now we've seen this kind of resurgence of it, and again, we're going to be really diving into this towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. I'm concerned about Texas, Louisiana, and quite frankly, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida should still keep their eyes peeled as well. So the entire Gulf Coast really has at least some chance of seeing some development from this. So let's go ahead and take this towards Tuesday on September 10th, and what we see is that this one actually further develops as it approaches Texas, and at the very least this is going to be a heavy rainmaker for the coastal Texas area. So even if we don't see development, we would likely still be looking at some potential precipitation in here. Let's go ahead, and I know I'm just moving past it, but really when we look at the United States as of this point, there is not a lot to discuss whatsoever. Wednesday on September 11th here, we see this low really taking off. 997 here, approaching central Texas coast. We also see precipitation for Louisiana, even Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, like I said. So really, we're seeing a lot of tropical activity for the entire Gulf of Mexico. But your tropical low, which could even be a tropical storm by this point, is very close to the coast of Texas. Now, it really wants to take kind of a northeasterly turn from here, so it kind of skirts along the Texas coast as opposed to, heading straight into Texas. So this is obviously a worst case scenario and would be a more impactful solution. So we're seeing more coastal areas being hit by this storm that is really maintaining, or if not even still intensifying along the way. Definitely an interesting scenario, and we need to discuss the fact that western Louisiana there as well, especially along the coast, is seeing some of the brunt of this. Again, this is still about 114 hours out, so there is some chance that we see this hit further eastward or further southward here. So definitely everywhere needs to be on the lookout until we get a lot closer for this one. We do have some storminess really trending in for the Pacific Northwest here, as well as southwestern Canada. This is bringing with it some cooler air. I know the west has been very, very hot this does look to be a cool down for you guys. And this should kind of cause some warmth to prevail, especially for the central states, but even for some of the east, especially the southeast here. So that is going to be something that we're tracking very closely, of course. Let's take this just a little bit further, and we see that this storm is really quickly intensifying as it hits the coast right between Texas and Louisiana as a 992, and that would be a pretty intense tropical storm likely, if not maybe even approaching Category 1 hurricane status. So this is definitely something to watch. This also could overperform or underperform compared to what we're looking at here, so there's still a lot of variables at play. I would never in a million years downplay the warmth that we have across the Gulf of Mexico, and this storm could certainly develop much quicker and much more than we anticipate. So that is definitely going to be a factor regardless, just because of the potential that we have out there. I want to take us all the way to Thursday afternoon on the 12th here, and we see that this low is now over northern Louisiana, bringing precipitation to a lot of your Gulf states. The Pacific Northwest here seeing quite a bit of precipitation in activity. Regardless, here we see a lot of warmth prevailing to the north and east there of that precipitation. So we're seeing this kind of balance of colder air dropping in the west, and then just to the east of it, this warm air surging with a low in between. Pretty classic setup, pretty classic stuff. Friday here on September 13th, we see that there's still this tropical low. It's spreading out as it weakens, which is a fairly common thing to see. So we see this low over Arkansas, but we're seeing precipitation for many different states here, as you can see. So this is definitely a far stretching impact zone with that system by that point. Saturday, on September 14th, we see that this precipitation is heading eastward towards the Ohio Valley. We're also seeing some of this for the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast as well. So again, still a very far stretching storm. We are seeing some warmth try to push back in the west. This could force the trough eastward. Something that I'm watching for around that 15th time frame. Here's Sunday on the 15th, and we do see this precipitation for the southeast here. Let's keep going. Monday on the 16th here, we're seeing a lot for the Gulf and as well as the southeast there, so a lot of activity. And then for Tuesday, we see that there is a lot of precipitation up here in the Midwest, as we have a low overhead in Canada, and then also for plenty areas in the east. Now, as we take a look at the total precipitation, there's no surprise that we are seeing a pretty big dry area, especially in here for a lot of the southwest, for corner states, the plains here as well, just to the east of the Rockies, and even some of the Midwest here. And if we were to really try to indicate where the below average precipitation is, it's going to be this entire area likely. So something like this. We do get a pretty decent amount of precipitation, obviously, through some of the Mississippi River area, up through Ohio as well, and then throughout the southeast. So these areas should do pretty decent. Let's just take a look at the kind of anomalies here. And as you can see, like I said, this area here is quite stormy compared to normal, whereas these areas are very, very dry compared to normal throughout the plains, Midwest, Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, as well as the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. We're seeing all of these areas seeing below average precipitation. Above average throughout a lot of the West, including the mountainous West here, throughout the Rockies, some of the Cascades, where we really don't average a whole lot for the summertime. So the fact that we're seeing a little bit here with this brief stormy pattern that moves in with the cold that I mentioned, that is going to really, really aid in bringing these averages up quite a bit. So that's definitely something that we're watching for here. Now, as we take a look at the temperature anomalies according to your GFS model, here is that massive cool down that we're seeing currently take place, and we are seeing far below average temperatures. This is today. We're seeing far below average temperatures for these areas across some of the plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley. This is a significant Arctic blast. We even see a further color shade below average for some of these areas in the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley. And this is going to be the 15 to 25 degrees below normal area. Very, very far below normal. Here's that heat out west that I was talking about. This is a classic positive PNA. And this really is what is causing this cool down to move into the east. So that's really what we have to thank for that. Here is tomorrow on Sunday the 8th. And we're seeing a massive area of these far below average temperatures. Certainly interesting to see. As we keep going towards Monday, it's still quite cool. Tuesday here, and then even Wednesday, we finally start to see this warmer air pushing back here for the exact areas that we're seeing the far below average temperatures. By Wednesday 11th, they are seeing far above average temperatures. Here's that cooldown for the northwest that I mentioned. So we see a pretty decent cooldown here beginning for these areas, and that really prevails Thursday here, Friday, Saturday. Keep in mind that tropical systems bring cooler temperatures than normal oftentimes, and that's what we're seeing right here as this tropical low moves northward. As we keep going, that cold really sticks around out west, and we really don't see that come to an end until about the 20th time frame. So that is going to be a pretty significant cooler period for the west. After this, though, this is the 23rd, we begin to see warmer temperatures prevail once again out west, and we start to get going with the cooldowns again as we have this one moving in and likely another on the way for the east right here. So that is definitely going to flip the pattern once more if it occurs like this model is showing. Very, very interesting flip-floppy pattern. Here's the 5-day periods. Here's the 8th through the 13th, very cool in the east. Here's the 13th through the 18th, and we start to see that warmer air returning to the east with cooler out west. Here's the 18th to the 23rd, pretty neutral throughout a lot of the United States, but the 23rd through the 28th, this model is also picking up on that second cooler pattern. We get cold here again in the east with warmer for a lot of the mountainous west. That's why this cooldown is pushed so far to the east, because this warm air is kind of intruding on it. Here is the 28th through the 3rd of October. We start to see that colder air push back in for the west. Here's the 3rd of October through the 8th. Here's the 8th through the 13th. And then here's the 13th through the 18th. We end things the 17th through the 22nd, seeing cooler air prevailing in the east once again. Now, as we take a look at the entirety of the next 30 days here on this particular model, this is what we're currently seeing. Really a cooler pattern in the east overall, warmer in the central, and then cooler in the west as well. So along the lines of what we've been calling for still. Here is your European AI model where we're going to kind of track some of these tropics. Again, be watching the Gulf, be watching this MDR, which is short for Main Development Region here between Africa and the Caribbean. These are the main areas to be watching. And as we move this forward a couple of days, we see that Gulf energy developing, plenty to work with in the MDR as well. We see that system strikes into central Louisiana, so again, further east cannot be ruled out like we mentioned, and that is a quite strong system, 989, a little bit stronger than the European model was showing as well, so very, very interesting. Let's keep going with this. That moves up into the east, bringing a lot of precipitation with it, and we really don't get any further development with this, except for off the east coast here around the 20th time frame. This is very far out, so take it with a grain of salt, but we see that move up potentially into New England. Very far out, take that with a grain of salt, but certainly something that we will be watching for, of course. Here is your National Hurricane Center 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook, and here's that code red I was discussing. We do have a 50% chance of development over the next 48 hours, so over the next 2 days, and then a 70% chance over the next 7 days, so a quite high chance through the long range of seeing this one develop as it approaches probably that western Gulf of Mexico, but again, from Texas to Florida, be on the watch out. In the main development region, we do have an area of 10% chance of development over the next 48 hours with 40 over the next 7 days. And then one to the further east of it, coming off of Africa, that is a 0% chance over the next 48 hours, but a 20 over the next 7 days. We will, of course, be watching all of these things with you guys, so be sure to subscribe. We do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.